Thank you for joining in to check out this video on Jahmyr Gibbs. I'm going to focus on some of the big plays that he made in 2025, but more so his impact in the passing game, some of the concepts that were borderline unstoppable despite a disappointing season from a record standpoint for the Lions. We'll get the film started here with what I think is one of the most impressive runs or plays that he made in 2025. I have access to a new program called Once Sports Telestrator or Once Sports Analyzer, and I'm utilizing that to create some on-screen graphics that I think just accentuate what's happening and give you an idea, a preview, if you will, before each snap. So in any case, this is going to be heavy on receiving skills and concepts that relied on Gibbs' unique ability. This particular example here is a run play, obviously, that gives them the lead in overtime against the New York Giants. Gibbs is one of those guys, in my opinion. I compare him to Lamar Jackson in this standpoint that if he has time and space, borderline unstoppable, and an MVP caliber player from an impact standpoint. And what I mean is specifically the offensive line getting two jump throughs here, moving directly up to the second level of the defense, to the inside linebackers quickly, such that there was no way that the linebackers are going to get away from them. And in this case, Gibbs cuts it off the backside block of the left guard. When you get any talented running back to the second level untouched, it's a great setup or a great start. But he's a finisher, right? He's a guy who can stiff arm, break tackles when unimpeded on downhill, or I should say angled runs specifically. Untouched like this, virtually unstoppable. And the Lions have a culture that they want to get back to, a culture of playing football where they're blocking downfield, blocking throughout the entirety of the play. Here you got a short example of it leading up to the draft. The Lions don't necessarily need weapons because they've got one, if not two, ultimate weapons in the form of Gibbs and St. Brown. This style of play, this being able to hit big run concepts down the field, is unique in the NFL. There's other guys, certainly the Ravens had one in Derrick Henry. They can score anytime they touch the football. Jahmyr Gibbs is a unique case. Basically what I mean when I say that is that on an innocuous run play or something that looks simple, he can take it to the house. Here's the two inside linebackers spot shadowed in yellow for the Giants. You're going to get jump throughs, what I consider to be jump throughs by the right guard and the left guard. Gibbs's initial path illustrated by this red line. And those inside linebackers really had no shot here. In this case, it's a really nice job by the backside, the left guard, the backside guard, getting up to 54, closing him off, or at least I should say giving Gibbs the opportunity to cut off the backside there, get to the second or, actually third level of the defense, stiff arm one guy, run away from a second defender. But the downfield blocking is something the Lions have focused on in the past. The effort, the tenacity with which they get after people, it just fits perfectly with Gibbs' home run style, if you ask me. This video, like I said, is going to focus on some of his 77 catches from 2025. This is the game-winning or go-ahead at the time touchdown run against the Giants. Really surprising afternoon game where New York was able to, really abuse or shock the Lions defense. It was all for naught, however, because of the game-winning touchdown run, 69 yards from Jahmyr Gibbs. Touchdown run against another NFC East opponent, this time the Cowboys later on in the year, I think week 14. Once again, I'm using the Once Sports Telestrator / Analyzer to kind of draw on the screen, create on-screen graphics that hopefully accentuate or improve the presentation. Basically, it's a telestrator that I consider to be, pretty much professional level. So balls on the left hash, that's illustrated by the blue line. And it's really kind of like a jet follow concept. So receiver motion right to left by Isaac Tesla. And then Gibbs is going to begin on the path in the same direction as Tesla, as opposed to what I call jet dive, where he would be going in the opposite direction or against the grain of the motion, he being Gibbs. Also involves a designed or created wind back block. In this case, it's St. Brown. So it's an 11 personnel group with 3 receivers, Tesla, St. Brown, and Jamison Williams. So normally the insert block by a receiver, a third receiver in 11 personnel, occurs from a receiver who lines up on the same side as the run. So they would insert in between the tackle and the tight end. In this case, it's an eligible offensive lineman in the case of Dan Skipper. So we're talking about St. Brown's route back against the grain of the offensive line blocking scheme. And that's really, if you ask me, designed to take advantage of Sewell working up to the second level, St. Brown getting to the backside corner, and then Gibbs bursting downhill, the unique talents or skill that he has. This one put the game away, really. Dallas had closed to 30-27. Long drive here for the Lions, able to take a 10-point lead in the fourth quarter. The idea for me in showing some of this is to talk about what he offers, number one. Number two, show off the program, the One Sports Telestrator, and just give you an idea of what I think Detroit might be looking at doing in the draft, which is strengthen the offensive line in a way that takes advantage of their best weapon or weapons, in the case of Gibbs and St. Brown. Abused our weak side inside linebacker, really, in the Week 3 win in Baltimore. I say our because I'm a Baltimore Ravens fan, in case you don't know. So the weak side linebacker is the guy generally lined up into the boundary at the NFL level. So we're talking about this guy right here for the Ravens, spot shadowed in red. A clear out route basically by the X receiver is indicated by that blue line, talking about Jameson Williams, of course. And that just really gives Gibbs what most people refer to as a choice concept. He could run the route to the inside, breaking it on almost a kind of a slant path, or read it like he does here and then break back to the outside. Really puts the inside linebacker in no man's land. There's almost nobody who can do this. Clearing out this corner, dealing with the X receiver. You can see that's exactly where Jared Goff is looking. Oftentimes at the NFL level, you get these teams that play what some people refer to as combo coverages or split field. I don't refer to it as split field when you've got zone to the field, the wide side, the bottom of our screen, and man to the boundary. That's just a natural reflection or recognition by the defense, I should say, that the threats are different to the wide side of the field and then into the boundary. It's only a 6-yard game, but this is just going to be foundational, if you will, because it establishes the isolation skills or the offering, I should say, that Jahmyr Gibbs gives you to isolate on a linebacker or even a safety at times that's virtually indefensible. Same game, another example of it from the first quarter. Ball is on the right hash, that's illustrated by the blue line, with the boundary or short side of the field being up here, and the field or the wide side being underneath or to the bottom side of that blue line. Same matchup once again, isolated against the will linebacker into the boundary, and another choice-ish type route, if you will, as the Ravens bring 5. And so what happens here is initially Jared Goff is looking to the side that has Amon-Ra St. Brown, understandably so, right? He's an extremely efficient receiver who does damage. But since Goff knows that it's man, he's got the opportunity to come back to that matchup. Gibbs isolated against the will linebacker, a ton of space. Some of this is, most of this, almost all, is as a result of the unique skills, the catchability, and the reliability of Jahmyr Gibbs, but also it's the processing of Goff, understanding what the coverage is, coming back here. You've got a free safety who's in position to potentially help with an in-breaking route or a deep concept by St. Brown. So Goff comes back to a place where there is no help at all. Again, it's the isolation nature. Gibbs pulling away from the boundary side or will linebacker for the Ravens, and you get a pretty easy 8-yard gain. You see this consistently, if you ask me, across the film with Gibbs throughout 2025. Obviously had access to the Ravens-Lions film from Week 3 since I covered both of those teams. Ball on the left hash here, and a concept that you're going to see over and over again in this video, I think 3 separate times, and that's a clear out by a receiver that lines up to the same side as Jahmyr Gibbs. In this case, you've got Gibbs and 3 eligible receivers to the bottom side. So it's like bunch A, really. I say A with the running back set up to the bunch or the trip side. And in this case, the clear out is run by Laporta, the tight end. Same concept. He's going to almost create a 2-for-1. And what I mean when I say 2-for-1 is pick or screen that inside linebacker, which is Roquan Smith, and then also bring with him the defender assigned to guard him. I'm talking about Laporta. That basically creates the space for Gibbs to run onto in an isolated fashion against Teddy Buchanan, the will linebacker that I've talked about a couple of times here. There's the 2-for-1. occurring in the middle of the field. Laporta with Marlon Humphrey guarding him, shadowing him, running with him, and then Roquan Smith essentially being screened or picked, creating this space between there for Gibbs to run onto. Sometimes it's a choice route. Sometimes it's a design element, meaning they know it's predetermined that Gibbs is going to run behind this clear out concept. I would offer to you that in this particular instance, this is a design element. Almost ends up being a touchdown. It's a great tackle by Malachi Starks, the rookie safety, or rookie this past year for the Ravens. We're talking about right here, holding Gibbs, who's super strong coming downhill, whether it's a goal line situation or short yardage, holding him short of the touchdown. But you get a really nice idea, I think, of how the space is often created and the conflict that the inside linebacker, in this case Teddy Buchanan, is put in trying to keep up with Jahmyr Gibbs when he has what I would consider to be a two-way go. For a moment here, we'll get away from a Gibbs usage and potential in the pass game. Of course, he had 77 catches this year. In another program or team, I should say, without Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jamison Williams, Sam Laporta, if and when healthy, Isaac Tesla. On another team, Jahmyr Gibbs could catch 90 footballs in a season. He's that good. He's that talented and dangerous. I know the yards per catch was down. I personally would like to see him utilized more in the choice routes, down the field a little bit, as opposed to screens. In any case, we're going to divert or go away from his impact in the pass game for a moment and talk about this, what I call a sweep option play for a touchdown, culminating a really powerful, I would say, statement drive by Detroit that bridged the gap between the third and the fourth quarter. Mike Green, the rookie edge defender for the Ravens, is going to be the read man, and it's what I consider or call sweep option. St. Brown's getting the ball first on the handoff from Jared Goff, and then he's going to read Mike Green. I think this is designed to be a pitch all the way, in my opinion, once they got the look that they expected, and that's this kind of solo inside linebacker look with Roquan Smith set up as an inside linebacker, and the other inside linebacker, Teddy Buchanan, set up as an edge defender to the tight end side. Basically, I think the Ravens were trying to defend split back sweep, which is a staple or has been a staple play for Detroit for a number of years when they show this split backs kind of look. Now, Jahmyr Gibbs is not actually in a split back alignment. He's on the midline. The midline exists in a line between the center, the quarterback, and the tailback or running back who's set up behind the quarterback. In this case, it's not split backs, but let me give you an idea of what I'm talking about by going to the end zone angle for a moment. So I'm talking about the alignment of these two running backs here. I understand that St. Brown is not actually a running back. Split backs is a formation that was utilized under center for a number of decades, where normally the one running back is to the right of the quarterback at a particular depth, oftentimes lined up in the B gap. So what I mean by that is lined up with his feet, outside, just outside of the guard. In this case, the other running back / receiver, St. Brown, lined up far wider than that. Normally the scheme, what is I consider almost a patented fourth down play for the Lions historically, dating back to Ben Johnson being the offensive coordinator, is kind of like this sweep play, the path that I have illuminated here. So Gibbs running to our right-hand side on the screen, but the left-hand side for the Lions offense, to the outside, and this kind of cut block by a tight end. In this case, they've almost inverted it because, of course, Gibbs is not where I have him located right now on the screen. I've returned him back to his actual alignment, and they're going to sweep it the other way. Kyle Hamilton seems to be noticing something. It appears to me as if he's pointing at Jahmyr Gibbs, but it's too late. In the solo inside linebacker look, Sewell is going to work up quickly and get to Roquan Smith. Really, no one can they've created a 2-on-1. Okay, so 2 being St. Brown and Jahmyr Gibbs, 1 being Mike Green, the outside linebacker / edge defender. And you can see what's happened here. Sewell with an easy jump through to go get Roquan Smith. There's really conceptually nothing that the Ravens could do to defend this play. Perfect play call, perfect execution, and 2 guys that they trust, or 3 guys that they trust. Really, Goff to recognize it, St. Brown to get the handoff and pitch it really quick. Yes, this may actually have been a read on Mike Green. I understand that, but St. Brown is reading it extremely quickly because of the numbers, because they do not have, the Ravens, a second-level player who can pursue, from inside out because of the ability of Sewell to jump through and go get Roquan Smith. and then the right guard, Tate Radledge, to go get the defensive tackle. Green really didn't have a chance here, if you ask me. Sam Laporta, the tight end, just as another layer to this play, if you ask me, that Detroit had a receiver, tight end lined up at receiver to go lock up and kind of manhandle a corner, in this case, Marlon Humphrey. I return to his usage in the pass game, and this is going to be a very familiar concept, but it's run from a different platform. So 12 personnel group, 2 receivers to the bottom side of the screen, 2 tight ends to the top. And what that's done is it's forced Washington to be in their base 3-4 structure. 3 interior defensive linemen, 2 OLBs. We're talking about Frankie Lavu, and I'm not sure who that outside linebacker is there. But in any case, it's just math. Washington has 3 second-level defenders, the 2 inside linebackers and the corner, to cover 3 routes. The tight end route is illustrated in blue. The inside tight end route is illustrated in blue. And the outside tight end route, which I believe is Laporta, is illustrated in green. It's just math. So once Gibbs presses to the outside, basically he's taking an outside release here, then it becomes very easy for Gibbs and Goff to potentially read this inside linebacker. I'm talking about the guy who's spot shadowed right here in yellow. I do think that this is a read for Gibbs because the corner is occupied to the top side with this route by Laporta. It's essentially an isolation. Unfair advantage for the Lions to have another weapon like this in the case of Jahmyr Gibbs. Conceptually, it's been cleared out space in the middle there by, I think that's Brock Wright, on the inside linebacker, Bobby Wagner. And then Gibbs runs onto that open space. It's an easy score for Jared Goff, obviously, who's looking to that side. It's a great setup, if you ask me, to have St. Brown and Jameson Williams on one side of the field and Jahmyr Gibbs releasing to the other, to the opposite side. I'm not necessarily talking about Laporta and Gibbs lining up on the same side and releasing in that direction together, but here it works out in that case. 4 talented pass catchers of the football, Gibbs and Laporta to one side, St. Brown and Jameson Williams to the other. Personally, I'd like to see more of this as opposed to screens. I'm not saying that screens are unnecessary with Gibbs. I want to get him moving downhill or get him up the field a little bit and then an out route towards the sideline. Give Jared Goff the ability to read things. I did, in the course of trying to research, investigate, and produce this video, I did come across a number of unsuccessful screens with Jahmyr Gibbs. I don't think it's his fault. I just think defenses at times seem to be prepared for it. This is not one of those situations, however. This is a beautiful play call on a 3rd and 3 against Dallas. Gibbs is obviously spot shadowed in red. He crosses behind Goff on his path, and that's rarely seen. Really at any level of football is what I mean. So I'm talking about Gibbs' path illuminated there in red. And conceptually, you have a similar route design in that one of the routes is going to go over the middle and pull or occupy a defender and allow Gibbs to run onto that space. The only difference is you really have what I consider to be a banjo read here by the Cowboys' 2 inside linebackers. So let me be specific about what I'm talking about as far as a banjo read. So first of all, the One Sports Telestrator program is amazing. I can do distance tracking. It's built into the program. It's truly absurd and a lot of fun to use and try to present to you. So these 2 inside linebackers, I think, are on a banjo read with Jahmyr Gibbs. And so what that means is if Gibbs was release here to the boundary, then I believe this inside linebacker would take him man-to-man. This inside linebacker may fall off to the middle of the field, in rat, low hole, whatever you want to call it, if it's man-free. As opposed to what actually occurs here, which is Gibbs going in this direction, you'll see this guy point. Basically, he's telling this linebacker to take over the coverage on Jahmyr Gibbs. But the route concept, the way that it works out, Gibbs is running onto the space that's vacated by those 3 receivers to the top side. Now, one of them is a tight end. It's Brock Wright. But the other 2 is St. Brown and Tesla. And so you can see what occurs. Offensive lineman Taylor Decker able to get out in front of this inside linebacker. Another offensive lineman, I think it's Glasgow, but I could be wrong there, working up to the second level. I think that's actually Tristan Colon, so my apologies for that. But the point is, you have this very natural conflict that's put on these two inside linebackers pre-snap by being responsible as a tandem for Jahmyr Gibbs based upon his release. And then the timing with which Goff gets this throw out in front of him to take advantage of the space. Goff's recognition, his understanding of the coverages is a part of all of this, in my opinion. Basically, him being able to see things quickly. This is an easy read. In fact, it's a design screen with everybody else just basically running defenders off. In my opinion, getting Gibbs the football moving downfield is more beneficial than screens. At some point, you got to run screens with every running back that you've got back there, especially one as talented as Jahmyr Gibbs. I'm certainly not saying that none of them were successful. After watching 6 games and breaking them down with the One Sports Telestrator / analyzer, I've come to the conclusion that for me, based upon my observation just from 2025, far more beneficial getting Gibbs moving forward, downhill, and or towards the sideline than it was on more traditional screens. Another play that's going to be a whole lot of fun to talk about the way that Gibbs is utilized, and B, a way to show off the One Sports Telestrator program. This is a 5-1 look by the Cowboys. So 3 interior defensive linemen, an OLB, and inside linebacker. So I'll show you another one here in a moment that the Steelers used and call it a 5-1. Some people call it a 3-3. That's fine, but 5-1 really denotes the alignment. 5 on the line of scrimmage, 1 inside linebacker, and then, of course, 5 DBs on the field, one of which is kind of like a hybrid for the Cowboys. But in any case, this is what I consider to be a star spacing concept. So the reason why it was explained to me that it's called a star is it's meant to describe the spacing that's created by the routes at a certain point in time. I'm only illustrating to you 2 of these. There's obviously 5 routes, one of which is going to be run by Dan Skipper, the eligible tight end for the Lions that they got a lot of use out of. So here's the play action and the way that works out. You can see the receivers, really spacing out, and that'll be illustrated here in a moment. I'll give you the distance from Gibbs as he moves towards the middle of the field to all 5 of the other receivers. Hopefully you can get an idea of what I'm talking about when I call it a star concept. There's a whole bunch of different names, but in any case, here's the distance that the other receivers for the Lions are from Jahmyr Gibbs. So I'm talking about the spacing that is created for him in the middle of the field to catch it and then instantly put his foot in the ground. Even though I've got it paused, you can see he's putting his right foot in the ground right there. To basically escape, almost give him a 2-way go because of all that space that is afforded. What I mean is 2-way go here and there. He could go in either of those 2 directions. Really cool, the spacing that's provided. And number 1 and number 2, the way that the One Sports Telestrator builds it in. It's almost like a 5-out in basketball where people are isolated and the other 4 players on the team are spotting up, if you will, behind the 3-point line to give a guy a chance to operate in space. Essentially, that 2-way go, like I described. And then you can see the space that Gibbs has to run onto after the catch, takes advantage of his skills, takes advantage of the design, if you ask me, is fantastic. Of course, this is later in the season. I love the ability to diagram this stuff, especially the distance management. There's more options in this telestrator or analyzer that is truly unique and a whole lot of fun. You guys are more than welcome to let me know what you think of it in the comments section. Got 2 more plays to go over with you. More isolation, albeit a different concept. Really should be really familiar to you, but against a 5-1 look by the Steelers. Of course, a home loss later in the season. Again, there's something to mention here about Goff's recognition from an empty set, the conflict that is created because of the personnel alignment that the Steelers chose. 5-1, 3 down linemen, 1 OLB up to the top side, 1 OLB to the bottom side, and then an inside linebacker, Mike, in the form of Patrick Queen. Jared Goff directly looking at Gibbs and St. Brown to the bottom side. From an empty set, you've got 3 receivers to the top side, 1, 2, 3. You always number from outside in. And the bottom side, St. Brown, 1, 2. So being to the 2 receiver side oftentimes affords your slot receiver a favorable matchup, and that is the case here. So it's Jack Sawyer, a rookie outside linebacker from Ohio State, and really obvious choice route against a too high safety structure. Basically, you can't do this with Jahmyr Gibbs on the field. I'm talking about this 5-1 look with a too high safety structure, too high safeties right there, spot shadow right there below their feet in yellow. And then what's going to happen is, because the 3 receiver side is to the top of our screen, Patrick Queen, the inside linebacker, has to recognize that. He has to match the numbers and move to that side. And what that does is afford, or once again, clear out all this space for Gibbs to run onto, cross up Jack Sawyer. It's unfair, right? The isolation is obvious with the 2 safeties deep and the inside linebacker out of there, the inside linebacker forced to go to the 3 receiver side. And then in this case, on top of that, you get Gibbs, once again, downhill, catching the football, moving forward, away from the quarterback, spins out of the attempted tackle of Patrick Queen. You got the breakaway ability, or the agility, I should say, to get yards after the catch. One of my favorite plays that you saw Gibbs utilized on. Familiar concept here, I would say. It's 2nd and 15, moving back to the Cowboys game one more time. And he's lined up to the trips in an empty formation this time. But conceptually, as far as the routes go, very similar to other stuff that we've been talking about. So what I mean is the close alignment of St. Brown and Gibbs here, and then the routes that they are going to run. So St. Brown is going to cross underneath initially, and then Gibbs is going to delay release to the outside. Gibbs' route is illustrated in red, I should say. He's going to release to the outside and then run underneath directly onto, you guessed it, the open space that's created by St. Brown running underneath. Essentially, St. Brown clears out the inside linebacker. I think it's Logan Wilson here, who has since retired at this point. And what it does is it really allows allows Gibbs to be isolated on this nickel DB / linebacker kind of hybrid for the Cowboys. Clearing out the middle of the field, easy completion, if you ask me. You can see that Goff is looking in that direction where St. Brown, Gibbs, and Jameson Williams all lined up. In my opinion, I get it that there was games last year where Detroit was trailing in more than you wanted, right? Especially compared to 2024 when they went 15-2. I think Gibbs could have another 70 catches this year because he's so spectacular. I don't know what's going to happen with the 2 4th-round picks, the 2 5th-round picks, and 2 6th-round picks. I could see Detroit taking a running back. I really could. I know that they signed Isaiah Pacheco. I could see them taking a running back to handle some of the carries. You want to get Jahmyr Gibbs the ball as much as possible. His usage in the passing game, well, as someone whose team played against the Lions last year, and then I've went back and watched that film. Obviously, you see evidence of that now because this is freshly broken down by me with the One Sports Telestrator program. It's truly remarkable what is available to the Lions, how easily this space is available to the Lions offense to utilize Jahmyr Gibbs in the passing game like I'm showing you here. Another opportunity to look at some of the impact in the pass game. Last play that I'm going to diagram for you here, then give you some closing thoughts. This is more prototypical, I guess, in a couple of ways. Number one, Gibbs is lined up in the backfield. He's into the boundary. So it's trips, 11 personnel trips to the field, trips being 1, 2, 3 receivers, and then the running back set into the boundary. That's a typical trips alignment or trips B alignment with the running back set up away. It's another choice concept against the will linebacker. We're talking about this matchup right here. And it's a man-zone combo by Dallas. So what I mean is you're going to get man to the boundary where Gibbs and Jameson Williams are located up here. And then you're going to get, quite obviously, a zone to the field to the bottom side. So give you an idea of what I'm talking about by using some of the graphics here in the program. There is the man turn by the cornerback up here. It's Siobhan Revel. And then the will linebacker being isolated on Gibbs. It's pretty obvious that that's a man situation. And then look what we've got at the bottom side. So the left-hand side for the Lions offense, the right-hand side for the Cowboys defense. You've got all 3 of those 4 defenders, are all staring directly at the quarterback, Goff. Talking about these orange lines here. This safety's getting depth, so, his eyes are not on the quarterback, but everybody else is. Gibbs has got a choice route. Goff isn't looking down here, but I'm just giving you an illustration of the way that a lot of teams play things, field and boundary. Zone to the field, man to the boundary. And because of Logan Wilson being in zone, he was looking at Jahmyr Gibbs. That's what allowed Logan Wilson to react so quickly to seeing the ball thrown to Gibbs. Hopefully I said that in a way that makes sense. I think I misspoke a moment ago. Said that Wilson was looking at Gibbs. He was quite obviously looking at Jared Goff. But in any case, it's an idea, number one, for you to see of what can be done in this program as far as player tracking and illustrating a zone structure or an area of the field that is being covered in zone versus an area of the field that's quite obviously being covered in man. It doesn't work out for the Cowboys. It clearly is another big play for Jahmyr Gibbs. This is one of my favorite videos to try to put together. Kind of lost access to some of my graphics production as far as thumbnails. Basically, I'm no longer going to pay money for Adobe Premiere, Adobe Photoshop. I mean, the price tag per month is going up too high. I feel like the One Sports Telestrator program is a far better option for football diagramming, telestration, on-screen annotations, whatever you want to call it. In some cases, I may go overboard with it. I love the program. It's a heck of a lot of fun for me to use and learn. The company's been amazing to deal with. They're going to allow me to do a promo code to try to promote the product, and I am super grateful for that opportunity because I think it's a fantastic product, and I would love to help spread their influence in North America. It's a European-based company. I'll put the link in the description for anyone who's interested in checking out the company at all. I do not have access to the promo code yet, but Want Sports Telestrator, Want Sports Analyzer is what I'm using. I love the program, and I'm currently trying to recruit other people to buy it as well because I just think it's so much fun, and I think it gives us as content creators a ton of advantages that other things do not afford. Basically, speed. I can produce these types of videos far quicker than I could with other programs, and that's the reason that I've completely committed to gravitating or moving towards it. In any case, if you guys enjoyed this video, which was obviously about Jahmyr Gibbs from a primary standpoint, but secondary, my attempt to first give you an idea of what things are going to look like moving forward graphically. If you enjoyed it, please let me know in the comment section, number one. I picked Jahmyr Gibbs specifically and his impact in the pass game because I do think that it's borderline unstoppable. It actually tends to be unstoppable. You have to have a very unique coverage paradigm and almost at times have a guy in at will linebacker who maybe shouldn't be there in run situations. So Jahmyr Gibbs, really truly modern weapon, kind of reminds me of someone that was one of my favorite players growing up, and that was Thurman Thomas. Some of you may not know much about him. I just think was a fantastic football player, Hall of Fame caliber, if you ask me, from a production standpoint for a number of years, but also his impact on the game, ability to bend defenses and exploit coverage by linebackers and safeties, very similar to Jahmyr Gibbs. The only difference is the top-end speed, obviously wasn't the same. But one of my favorite players that I've ever watched football of, Thurman Thomas. And so for me to make that player comparison is high praise. I appreciate you guys checking this one out, maybe listening to me talk too much at the end. If you think other Lions fans would enjoy this film study look at Jahmyr Gibbs from 2025, then please consider grabbing a link to this video, sharing it out on social media to help this content get more reach.